morning. It's Tuesday, September 9th, 2014. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel says Turkey has limits to what it will do in the fight against Islamic State militants in Iraq, but the country will play a role in the regional campaign being developed against the militant group. And in Iraq, a new cabinet has been sworn in, as well as a new prime minister with Sunni inclinations. Later on the show, Apple is set to announce its iPhone 6 at a press conference in California. We'll tell you why it matters, if at all. Good morning, I'm Yael Levi, and first to our main topic of the day. U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel is in Turkey meeting with the country's top politicians and its senior military leaders to discuss forming a regional coalition to battle the Islamic State group. During what is his first official visit to Turkey, Mr. Hagel is expected to urge officials, including Prime Minister Davutoglu, you will help me in pronouncing it right later on, thank you, and President Erdogan, to have their country play a key role in the regional component of an international plan to combat the militant group ISIS. Now, to hear more about it, we are joined in studio by Channel 2 Foreign Affairs editor Arad Nir. Good morning, Arad.
Good morning, Yael.
And before we delve into that, let's first take a look at the following report about the latest.
In Iraq on Monday, the Sunni Mufti, a Muslim legal expert, released a fatwa decree encouraging Iraqis to enlist in the fight against the Islamic State. The legal announcement said it is the general population's responsibility in Iraq to protect Sunnis from the threat of the Islamic State militants. Though the statement is not legally binding, it does deliver a formal denouncement of the IS as an organization that does not follow Muslim law. Also on Monday, a United Arab Emirates-based jihadi scholar said the terrorist group does not stand a chance against the newly announced NATO coalition. Abu Muhammad al-Maqdisi, one of the most prominent jihadi scholars, declared that he feels nothing but pity for the militants now that the world leaders are planning to take action against them in yet another declarative statement against the Islamic State. Meanwhile, the Iraqi media is looking forward to the Iraqi House of Representatives session scheduled for Monday evening. Decisions have yet to be made on who will be the most influential minister on defense, internal affairs, and oil. The newly formed government under Haider al-Abadi aims to be more inclusive, another decisive step in forming a powerful parliamentary front against the Islamic State.
As I said, we are joined by Senior Foreign Affairs Editor of Channel 2, Arad Nir. Good morning to you.
Good morning,
I want to touch a little bit on Hagel and his trip to Turkey, but before anything else, because I think this trip is actually a prelude to a speech that we're going to hear from President Obama coming up this Wednesday, this week, regarding his plan or the campaign to battle ISIS. And this is what the United States President Obama had to say the other day about the expected speech regarding the campaign against ISIS.
I'll make a speech and describe what our game plans are going to be going forward. But this is not going to be an announcement about U.S. ground troops. This is not the equivalent of the Iraq War. What this is similar to the kinds of counterterrorism campaigns that we've been engaging in consistently over the last 5, 6, 7 years. Not looking at sending in 100,000 American troops. We are going to be, as part of an international coalition, carrying out airstrikes in support of work on the ground by Iraqi troops, Kurdish troops. We are going to be helping to put together a plan for them so that they can start retaking territory that ISIL had taken over. I think that it is absolutely true that we're going to need Sunni states to step up, not just Saudi Arabia, our partners like Jordan, United Arab Emirates, Turkey. They need to be involved. This is their neighborhood. The dangers that are posed are more directed at them right now than they are us. And the good news is, I think, for perhaps the first time, you have absolute clarity that the problem for Sunni states in the region, many of whom are our allies, is not simply Iran. It's not simply a Sunni-Shia issue.
Arad Nir, I mean, this was a long soundbite from President Obama, but I think the most interesting bit of it was that, first, he keeps stressing they're not going to use troops and that he needs allies for this campaign. Chuck Hagel is in Turkey To me, this is very reminiscent of 2003, I have to say. It's a frightening thing. Firstly, how much does the United States need Turkey for a campaign as such, whatever they're planning?
It's much more complicated than the 2003 issue.
To say the least.
Much more
Yes.
complicated. Let's only visualize the southern borders of Turkey. It's hundreds and hundreds of kilometers bordering with Syria and bordering with Iraq. Along dozens of these kilometers, there are strongholds of ISIS already, regardless of the cooperation, if there is or there isn't, which we'll touch in a moment, between Turkey and ISIS. So it is a crucial partner to any operation that the Americans are going to undergo in Iraq and later on in Syria against ISIS. Geography. On the top of it, NATO has bases in Turkey already, the Incirlik Air Base, which harbors many American Air Force fighters, and lots of logistics operations come from there. Having said all this, the Turks are reluctant to take an active role in any American operation. Firstly, I think that President Erdogan, now we have to get acquainted with this
new title.
new term. Yes,
Before he becomes Tsar.
President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the newly elected president, he is so much against Bashar al-Assad of Syria, that his main attitude is the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Regardless of how cruel and how controversial this enemy of my enemy is, and I refer to ISIS. For many months, Erdogan has been accused for supporting, in a way, ISIS, turning a blind eye over their activities within Turkey, turning blind eye over them using Turkey as a recruitment center for the volunteers coming from all over the world to Turkey, and then from Turkey dispatched over to their units in Syria and in Iraq, using supply convoys, using some of the MIT, which is the Turkish Security Services assistance. These are all been accusations. Some of them been denied. Some of them have been denied and proved by foreign security or Western security services or intelligence services. So the Erdogan's attitude is extremely complicated at the moment. On top of it, they have 49 hostages being held by ISIS at the moment, mainly Turkish diplomats. Some people would say that this is very good for the Turks as a pretext to really reserve the way they cooperate with the Americans, because they don't want to put the hostage citizens in harm's way regarding ISIS. So the whole situation is complicated, and I think that Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel realized that in his talks last night.
But not only that, I mean, the Americans, if there is this, this campaign that the Americans are talking about, that we'll hear most likely more about it on Wednesday. I think it was interesting to hear Obama say, I'm not talking about sending 100,000 troops, which is, to me, it spells, it's not that he's not going to send troops at all. It's just not going to be 100,000. Who knows? We're theorizing right now. But the Americans need allies in this region if they're going to wage this campaign. They have to have Turkey. I mean, if I remember 2003, there was the tip of the spear. All these camps that I used to visit as a journalist, flying out of them into Iraq. They can't really do it without Turkey. If they don't have Turkey, what kind of a campaign can they even plan? That's what I'm wondering, to combat ISIS.
Well, they'll have a very limited campaign, no doubt of it. Well, they can use some other alternatives in Jordan, maybe. They can't use Lebanon, the Lebanese one.
Yeah, that's not going to fly.
So it's either Turkey or, other than that, they can have some ships from sea, some aircraft carriers to use. They'll be very, very debilitated without Turkey. And this is why President Obama have met President Erdogan, it's hard to get acquainted with.
Put a mind around it. President Erdogan.
He met President Erdogan in Wales this weekend. It was the first meeting after 16 months.
Wow.
There has been a huge black cat that moved even between Erdogan and Obama recently, but Obama knows that he needs Turkey in order to do it. Well, coming back to Obama's interview that we've just seen, this soundbite, you see, it's quite amazing. As reluctant as Obama is,
very reluctant.
Let me remind us all, Nobel Peace Prize laureate.
His campaign, his first presidency was basically won on the platform of we are not going to go into wars like that again. This is completely reversing that.
So as reluctant as he is, and he is reluctant, what he says, coming back to his first presidency, yes, we can, but we'll do it our way, and it will take a very long time. He's actually declaring the inheritance he's going to leave for his
for the president that will follow him.
Yeah. Well, he said it will take 3 years, and he has 2 years in office.
Supposedly, he's planning a 3-year. That was in the New York Times article that they're planning a 3-year air campaign.
Yeah.
But I'm asking you as a seasoned journalist and foreign affairs editor. I mean, there is no way that a 3-year air campaign, or maybe I've spent too much time in the Middle East. How can a 3-year air campaign actually get rid of a militant or this horrific group that everybody looks as the new as ISIS?
Let's put things into proportion.
Please.
Well, I can't. As seasoned as I am, I can, and thank you for this. I cannot foresee the future.
Of course, but we're theorizing.
Nevertheless, this ISIS, I think it's the first military web campaign. The fear that they draw using the web, using using YouTube, and using all these social media is in no proportion to their real military might. They are very strong and very stubborn against the minorities, against those who do not have any armies, etc. But they are very few. It's a small entity that draws extreme fear in a ruthless region, if I may say it this way.
I'm very glad you are finally saying it. Because it seems to me, and I'm going to put this into slightly in a humorous. It's a horrible thing to say. It always
let's
looks
keep humor. Yes.
Let's keep humor. We have to.
In this part of the world, you have to.
You must. When you look at ISIS footage, okay, and it always seems like a bunch of hoodlums on a truck. It's always like a bunch of hoodlums on a truck, and you've got the Western world with smart bombs and surgical bombs and mass armies terrified of this group. And there's something disproportionately, and the United States president coming out with, an address to the nation, this is how we'll fight them. What is so dangerous about them to the Western world?
At the moment, the danger is not the danger to the Western world is not in Iraq. The danger to the Western world is in the Western world.
Right.
The main fear is that they will go back to their homes. All these recruits. All these Western recruits that they have, these Islamists and those who became Islamists that went over there, got trained, and then will be sent home waiting for an order to act, like a repetition, a huge repetition of the 9/11, which we are about to mark in
13 years.
Yeah. So this is the main fear. So it is a terror organization to start with, a terror organization with a certain piece of land. So I think that the original thought that Obama outlined and was much more got into more details in the New York Times yesterday. I think that this has a good chance because this is not an army that guards a state. It's a small terror organization with a piece of land, which helps to tackle them. Once you know where to target them, it's much easier to finish it off.
Isn't there the fear, though, that when you do that type of fighting against a small group in the Middle East, that actually sparks up worse ideologies and worse groups? I mean, and I'm wondering out loud, if the United States, what are their options? What are their options in combating ISIS? Just an air campaign? I mean, isn't this...
Firstly, there has to be a coalition. And Obama is right. He has to get a Muslim coalition against these people. He needs not only Turkey.
Right.
Who
else?
He needs Saudi Arabia, and actually Kerry, Secretary of State Kerry, is coming to the region today. He's going to be in Saudi Arabia. He's going to be in Jordan. He's going to go to the Arab Emirates. This is what they need. They need a moderate Muslim coalition in order to fight these extremists. And mind you, even Iran is being discussed. They are denying it altogether, the Americans, but up until now, all the successes that they had, the military successes that they had on the ground, and they had, were thanks to American military strikes and Iranian ground operation. So there is a certain cooperation already. It is needed to continue this kind of cooperation. And again, between me and you, and since very few people are hearing us, I dare to say that President Assad of Syria, should be drawn into this equation too, because it seems, now after so many years, in a certain way, if you look at it, we can't forget his atrocities and
No, but it's interesting you mention it, because the lingo of the White House about Assad has very much toned down over the course of the last 6 months.
And Obama has said it out loud. He said that he is not our biggest worry at the moment. And, if I'll try to paraphrase what my grandmother used to say, sometimes when you need the guy who is going to be hanged, you take him off the rope. So apparently it seems, apparently seems that my grandmother was right, and in this particular time, Assad has become part of the solution and not part of the problem. And mind you, Yael, when we are not talking about ISIS and Iraq, we are talking about Ukraine and Putin. Also, Putin should become into this coalition, because ISIS draws or bears a big threat over Russia as well. There are some 100 Chechens fighting with them, ready to go home, ready to change the equation in the Russian Federation again. So the whole world, from various aspects, has this incentive to form a coalition and to fight these bunch of 20,000 fighters.
That's the thing that's mind-boggling to me.
Who use this expertise of the internet. Mind you, this is probably the first real internet war.
And because this seems to have been sparked actually very much after the Foley and the Sotloff beheadings. Before that, ISIS existed, but it was these beheading videos that ran on the internet that actually, they're winning the PR war, aren't they? We can say. Their PR within
This is the same as these aircrafts going into the World Trade Center 13 years ago, Yael. On the very day, I don't know about you, I thought that the world is going to turn upside down. Things have changed all over, but the world did not turn upside down. America recovered, the Western world recuperated, and Obama was targeted.
Yes.
Obama targeted Bin Laden. Bin Laden was killed by Obama. Okay, not by George W. Bush, by President Obama. So, a life has this tendency to go on their own pace, and as difficult it is to watch these movies and to apprehend what these people are doing, it seems to be the weapon of the cowards, not the weapons of the brave. And it works for a certain period of time, but I think that if Obama will be devoted to the way he described, there'll be a big success about it. And mind you, another terror organization will rise after this, and we will have to live with it. We have to contain terrorism. This is what we are bound to live with. It's a pest that can that will grow, and we will eradicate it on a certain place. It will come up on a different place. This is part of human existence since ever.
Rodney, thank you so much for joining us on this subject. Do stay with us in the studio as we get through to our next topic. Joining us now is I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev, who's here with the latest from the 14th Annual International Conference of the Institute for Counterterrorism in Herzliya. That is a mouthful. Hi, Tal.
Good morning.
Good morning. So you were there yesterday, and this is the 14th Counterterrorism Conference. Before we discuss what headlines, if any, came out of it, let's take a look at your report from yesterday.
The organizers of the annual International Conference for Counterterrorism couldn't have asked for better timing. The aftermath of the Gaza fighting and the international effort to combat the Islamic State created a perfect stage for their discussions.
And we do it for 14 years. Almost, unfortunately, every year there is another reason why this is really very crowded and in the center of the interest of the public and the media.
Throughout the day, a majority of the Israeli security cabinet ministers addressed the crowd, presenting their positions on the burning issues of the past weeks and the future months.
The regional threats, and these threats exist, and I'm not taking them lightly, in order to explain why we must not negotiate with the Palestinians. They are the ones who harm our capability of dealing with the world, together with the Arab world and the countries of the region, dealing with those threats.
We are calling now for a regional summit that will deal with the Gaza problem and with all the terror threats in the neighborhood and around us.
Not everyone agrees.
As you said, I-24 diplomatic correspondent was there yesterday, not to make light of this conference, but, it seems to be like a playground for Israeli politicians. What was the essence that you saw there? What was the main core?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't underestimate a playground for Israeli politicians. For those of us who cover the genre, these are nice days to see them fight each other and see themselves try to counter each other's narratives and each other's programs and visions. But actually, the headlines did come later on last night at the end of the first day of the conference. I think just to connect to what you and Arad just spoke about was actually the most interesting speech, I think, in my point of view, was the defense minister's speech, Yalon, who gave the closing speech of the day. And while most, as you mentioned,
what was the main gist of his speech?
Just to explain why he was interesting, because most of the Israeli politicians that arrived there was a long line of security cabinet ministers. They dedicated their speech exactly to the political playground and to the aftermath of the Gaza op, not really concentrating on the subject
of the conference, counterterrorism. Yeah.
It was there, but it was on the side. But then Yalon comes after he saw his fellow playmates, and he gave a very interesting speech regarding exactly this, the attempt to build an international coalition to fight terror, to fight ISIS. Yalon talks about how he hopes that the IS is a wake-up call for the Western world, and he criticizes the Western world for not actually being efficient enough in the past few years fighting terror. He does speak specifically about the fact that there are terror-sponsoring countries. Specifically, he's talking about Iran, Qatar, and Turkey, which he actually openly really blames and lashes out at Turkey openly for sponsoring and supporting terror, Hamas. Specifically Hamas. While these countries, we do know that they're openly supporting Hamas, at the same time they're sitting as equal members of many international organizations, the Iran and Turkey and Qatar. All members. This is, of course, Yalon's words. All members of the UN. Turkey is a NATO member, and at the same time, the world is trying to combat terror. But these are countries that are at the same time simultaneously actually supporting and encouraging terror. So Yalon says we can beat terror, and he actually does offer Israel's cooperation in intelligence and operational.
Yeah, but that's an interesting point, and I'm glad Rodney is still here, because when we're talking, when you said, that the West, or, the United States needs a coalition, needs a moderate, Muslim coalition, Yalon standing on the stage yesterday actually offering his help. I mean, where does that put Israel? That's not a coalition that Israel can take part in, is it?
Well, Israel can take part by proxy. When Reuters, I think, published last night that Turkey was offered Israel intelligence material through the Americans. So, don't hold your breath. There's no exchange of anything between Israel and Turkey apart from the business sector. But obviously, Israel is very, very well equipped to follow what's going on in the region. Israel actually, for many years, is following on this emergence of ISIS. It wasn't ISIS in the very beginning, but what these fractions that went off Al-Qaeda, and even the establishment of Al-Qaeda forces in Syria and later on in ISIS were closely followed by certain sections of the Israeli intelligence for years now, and Israel has been cooperating with friendly states regarding all this, friendly governments in the West, offering information and intelligence material that they do have. And as far as I understand from Israeli sources, there is a good cooperation, and these friendly governments are willing to cooperate, mainly regarding what's going on in their borders.
In the borders, rather than that.
At least up to now.
And Tal, finally, when Yalon stands on the stage and says all these things that actually harbor international, criticism toward the international community, that's not directed towards the audience of the conference, is it?
Well, no, not at all. But also, this is a group of experts. It's a group of international experts. Yalon is hoping that the message will be carried back to the various capitals. But yes, it was a clear message to the international community, while most of the others' messages, the other politicians' messages, were definitely directed inwards to the Israeli society.
No, completely. But I'm glad that within that political playground, we always have you to decipher and translate whatever they're saying. Thank you for joining me, Tal Shalev, this morning. Aradnir, same to you. When we get back, Iraq's parliament has officially named Haider al-Abadi as the country's new prime minister and approved most of his proposed cabinet. We'll see what that means. First, though, let's hear some more of this morning headlines. Good morning. Thank you for staying with us. I-24 News Morning Edition, where you should be. It is no coincidence that Iraq's new prime minister is more likable than his predecessor. Haider al-Abadi was handpicked last month to detoxify a political system poisoned to the point of collapse under Nouri al-Maliki. Former engineer, widely described as a witty pragmatist, Abadi is expected to vindicate supporters at home and abroad this week by wooing Sunnis, Kurds, and members of his own divided Shiite majority to form a unity government, which seems to have been formed now. But is he the right man for the job, and can Iraq, a decade-long battlefield where now the Islamic State seems to be waging its war, be saved? We are very glad to be joined in studio by I-24 News senior Middle East analyst Ali Waqid. Ali, good morning to you. Now, is this really the man, Abadi? First of all, there is news out of Iraq, unity government, new man in play. Is Abadi the man who can help, and I'm about to say, actually keep this country together, keep Iraq together, and combat what is going on right now with both the Islamic State and the fact that it is fractured in what seems to be, beyond repair?
I think at the long term, the big challenge of Abadi, when you say keep Iraq unified, is the Kurds and not the Islamic State. The Islamic State is it's true, it is a strategic threat, but the Islamic State, if this international coalition is taking place, and if the West comes to the help of the moderate Arab states in the region, I think this threat can be dealt with. Now the question is whether he will keep Iraq unified when we see that the Kurds are intensifying their demands for more autonomy, or even asking for full sovereignty and full independence. Now, Abadi, Yael should remember, comes from the same political party as Nouri al-Maliki, the Dawah party, the main political party, Shiite political party in Iraq, this party that was the main opposition also at the time of Saddam Hussein. So he is not totally changing the situation. He's not making a revolution, but yes, he is addressing the Sunni, telling them that you are part of the decision making in Iraq, the other minorities. And when we are expecting Secretary of State Kerry to come and to try to build this coalition
right, that's the main headline of this morning,
that has military goals, part of this effort is to try to calm the Sunnite minority in Iraq. This minority that gave this support to the Islamic State, not because the Sunnites in Iraq are so radicals, but because the Islamic State seemed to the Sunnite minority as the only way, the only tool to try to fight the regime of Nouri al-Maliki. And now when Haider al-Abadi is giving representation to the Kurds, to the Sunnite in its government, it's a first sign of change. It's a first sign of a hope that we want to see all the components of the Iraqi society integrated not only in the political life, but also in the decision making, in the strategic decisions and the strategic challenges that Iraq is facing.
No, but clearly that, but if we say that Abadi is the right man for the job, correct me if I'm wrong, I think one of the problems in Iraq is that the Sunnis weren't represented over the last decade, right? They had, less representation, or weren't taking into account sort of the community, though, seems to be leaderless.
It was not only less represented, that were almost excluded from the political life by Nouri al-Maliki. Nouri al-Maliki didn't separate between moderate Sunnis or radical extreme Sunnis. For Nouri al-Maliki, all the opposition was a radical Islamic Sunnite bloc, and he fought them the same way that he planned to fight Islamic State or Al-Qaeda or other jihadist group. While in the before Nouri al-Maliki, we knew that the Sunnite leaders of tribes, Sunnite heads of tribe, expressed their readiness to participate in the effort against Al-Qaeda, and Al-Qaeda for a while was defeated in Iraq because of the collaboration with some big Sunnite tribes. And this is what Haider al-Abadi tries to restore, give the Sunnite some place in the political life, integrate Sunnite in the political arena as part of the social and financial and mainly social effort to try to fight the Islamic State. The Iraqi army is not capable for the moment to face the Islamic State alone. There is this need to this international coalition, but the international coalition maybe will have a military intervention, but we need to make the ground less fertile for the Islamic State and make it less fertile, and to reduce the hospitality that find the fighters of the Islamic State among the Sunnite entities, the Sunnite tribes, and the Sunnite cities and villages.
No, definitely. And U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, who's also traveling to the region to try and create this coalition to combat the Islamic State, he hailed the Iraqi parliament's approval of a new government headed by Haider al-Abadi as prime minister. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
Tonight, we mark what is unquestionably a major milestone for Iraq, and what President Obama has made clear will be a cornerstone of our efforts against ISIL. Just a few hours ago, overcoming the obstacle of ethnic and sectarian divides, the Iraqi parliament approved a new and inclusive government, one that has the potential to unite all of Iraq's diverse communities for a strong Iraq, a united Iraq, and to give those communities the chance to build the future that all Iraqis desire and deserve.
And Ali Waqid, just a final word. Clearly, this is Secretary of State Kerry, congratulating Abadi and the Iraqi new parliament. But at the end of the day, it's his attempt to try and form a coalition, a regional coalition, with moderate Muslims to try and combat the Islamic State. Do you think the Americans, I know I'm steering a little bit off from point here, but Kerry's on his way to the region. Do you think the Americans stand a chance to create such a coalition?
There is difficulties in creating this coalition because of the fact that in this coalition we should find together Iran and Saudi Arabia,
Exactly.
Iran and the other Gulf
Exactly.
countries. Also Turkey, who is a part of the NATO, Yael. Turkey gave all the logistic support that the jihadists needed in Syria. Will he be capable to give a price to the Turkish so they can give up this support to the rebels? And of course, some parties in this coalition have small interests. For example, to face the Islamic State mean indirectly strengthen the regime of Bashar Assad. Will Turkey, will Saudi Arabia and the Emirates be ready to see Bashar Assad consolidated because of this military coalition? And will this military coalition succeed if the American slogan "No boots" will be the
will
leading
be actually,
point? Exactly.
upheld? Definitely, time will tell. We'll be busy, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Ali Walker, for joining us this morning. Yes, finally. Let's say hello and good morning to Anthony Grant, who brings me the news you missed while reading the headlines.
Yes. Well, good morning, of course.
Amen.
Nice to see you on this fine morning.
It is, isn't it?
It is a fine morning, but I have a sad headline, but it needs to be communicated, and so that's what we're going to get right to, which is The Guardian has the headline a little bit off the radar, but the Ukraine conflict, the death toll has risen to above 3,000 people, according to the United Nations, and this is because the UN Assistant Secretary General for Human Rights is saying if you count the 298 passengers that were downed in the Malaysian Airlines flight, which is attributed to the separatist rebels, that it's more than 3,000, and that's a lot. And I think that it's sad that it's sort of kind of off the radar so much of policymakers.
Or that.
Anyway, it's if it were Provence, I think people would be literally up in arms. But it's Ukraine, it's over there, it's distant. But again, as this drags
in the
on,
thousands, and then rightfully mentioned.
Right, and again, cutting over to Pravda, which is not the mighty Pravda of the past, but kind of like a kinder, gentler Pravda, has this little headline which says Russia may cut supplies of electric power to Ukraine. Again, the focus.
They're threatening again.
Yeah, there's Medvedev, the Prime Minister of Russia, said that whoever takes not very smart decisions to restrict supplies of electricity to the Crimea should understand that symmetrical measures are possible. So in other words, Ukraine has been cutting off some power supplies to Crimea for various reasons, and Russia is ready to strike back on the economic front.
And that's a frightening thing, because at the end of the day, it is that power supply that Russia, basically holds the Ukraine by its throat.
It's all about power.
It's all about power.
On
It's
so
always
many
about
levels.
power. No, ding ding.
Anyway, guess who's gone under the knife? Not Joan Rivers. She rest in peace.
We're not going to say a word. Yes.
Ayatollah Khamenei. Yes, and it's for something serious: prostate surgery.
I'm drinking here.
It has been a success.
Yes.
And,
really?
Yes, a success reported by Fars News, which is the main Iranian news agency. And interesting thing about this is that this is one of the first times, I think, ever that the news of a medical situation involving Iran's supreme leader, has been reported. There's Rouhani paying him a nice visit in the hospital. And
I can't help it. It's early in the morning when I have to say, don't they look cute?
When you come out of a major surgery like that, I think you're happy to be conscious. And
but do you think? The Iranians have become so active when it comes to showing up these pictures. That's one. Be it social. It's exactly the point you made. It's interesting that this is something that would never have happened. I think
with
5 years
Ayatollah
ago,
Khomeini.
Yeah, that would never happen.
I don't think he had prostate surgery.
No.
Although if he did, I don't know, because we wouldn't have found out about it in the press.
Exactly.
Which brings us to Erdogan.
Everybody's becoming so social. The Pope's on Twitter.
We'll get to the Pope later. But right now, the sort of self-declared pontiff of Turkey, that's Erdogan, who I know you were talking about earlier.
Yes. President Erdogan for you.
He's breaking links with Turkey's past. And on two levels, according to this newspaper. Number one, he is not going to be residing in the palace where Ataturk was, who was the founder of the modern Turkish state.
Yes.
So a separate residence. And also Turkish papers are reporting that thousands of kids whose parents wanted to have their kids in secular institutions have been allocated places at Islamic schools instead. Yeah. So this is a major change.
That is
not entirely unanticipated, mind you, but something that we're going to see a lot of
Uh,
coverage of in the press to come.
No, it's interesting to see what Erdogan, now that he's president, or as we have,
Yes.
I have to remember saying that, President Erdogan.
President Erdogan.
You know, how much of, you know, his, I'm trying to figure out what his agenda is, because it's been hard to follow up over the course of the last.
I think it's just his own agenda.
It's his own agenda, isn't it?
He has his vision of the direction Turkey should go. You know, strong economic growth, but with an Islamic undercurrent or
undercurrent that makes it so hard for the West to deal with him. But, you know, very interesting to watch. That said, if it's not Ataturk's palace, what palace is he going to do?
I think actually, I want to say it's a purpose-built place, but let's just say it's new and different.
It's new and different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of different, changing times, the Daily Mirror, we have a cover here from that British newspaper. Monarch, that's Queen Elizabeth, is in talks with the Prime Minister of David Cameron over the potential breakup of the United Kingdom. Don't let me be the last Queen of Scotland, apparently well, that's the headline. I don't know if that's what she actually said. But, you know, the nationalist campaign for Scotland to have independence it's 51% to 49% ahead of a vote, I think, on September 18th.
September 18th.
So this
and
is a huge deal.
This is huge, 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 huge. I'm very glad you're bringing this to our attention, because first, I find it fascinating. You know, and I really don't want her to be the last Queen of Scotland. I've been losing so much sleep over this.
I want her to be queen for as long as
Exactly.
queenly possible.
But there's also this, you know, it was announced yesterday. I know you're probably going to tell me that Kate is pregnant again.
I'm going to tell you, yes.
I know.
Yes,
I'm just, and I know, and I'm spilling your beans. Exactly, it all ties in. Because there is this, you know, there are people, there are pundits theorizing that actually Kate got pregnant in order to keep Scotland within the kingdom. Does that make sense to you? I heard that yesterday.
It does. Yeah, stranger things have happened in life, as we know.
Yeah, there we go.
But yeah, it's true. there could be a little
Just
I don't know, maternity agenda in
maternity
there.
agenda in there. My God. Yes.
And maybe you know, speaking of Kate, but just briefly before that, El País. This made me think of England as well, the UK. Because the British love Spain and love to holiday there. They do.
They truly do.
They're not the only ones that love to holiday in Spain. According to El País.
We do too. Yeah.
And Mafia.
And the Mafia.
International shouldn't laugh. Mafias are leaving a trail of death on the Costa del Sol. Now, it's interesting that Spain's leading newspaper picks up on the fact that crime is spiking on this sun-kissed swath of the Mediterranean coast. Well, apparently it's an ideal haven for criminals. It's a cosmopolitan crowd, great temperatures, nice beaches, sort of compounds where you can live a sort of secluded life.
That sounds like an ideal haven for everyone. Right?
Yeah, especially crooks.
Yeah, but
there have been, I think, 4 murders over the past year in the Marbella area alone. And apparently, you know, Spain's not doing too well economically either, so that could be playing into it.
Most likely that's usually what that's about. So, Tony, we're not going to Spain.
Not going to Spain. Let's go to Scotland instead. Where,
Scotland. And last one,
well,
sadly.
Again, Kate is
Duchess
of Cambridge is expecting.
Yeah,
yes.
Let's talk about
the Queen is delighted. And that's the official word. The Queen is
delighted. You know, when they say the Queen is
from
delighted, that's the most
residents there in
enthusiasm that they can muster for that. The Queen is delighted.
And you know, I think, you know, as we know, this is a lot of physical burden to put on Kate's shoulders.
Thank you.
Come on.
As a woman, I'm saying. How old is George?
Little baby Georgie?
Yeah, little baby Georgie.
He's a little over 1.
He's a little over 1.
Yeah. So this is a lot, but I think she'll have help.
Let's talk about me for a second. I'm just saying this because...
Take it away.
No, because I just did that, Kate, and I have some advice, okay?
Which would be?
It's not just a little hard. It's incredibly hard. Yeah. It's incredibly hard.
And already decisions are being made in function of this news. For example, she has been scheduled to go to Malta this month on her first independent solo trip. Will she actually go? We don't know. We don't know. The Maltese mystery.
Coming up next, folks, the Queen of Thieves, not of Scotland, Mar Mandelbaum, was New York City's first mob boss. I love this story. Stay with us. We'll tell you all about it. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Welcome back. It is still Tuesday, September 9th, 2014. This is still the morning edition on I-24, where you should be. Last I checked, I am still Yael Levi, and thank you for staying with us. Now, only 2 days ago, we found out the truth about the notorious murderer Jack the Ripper, who was apparently Polish-Jewish. Aren't they all? He was a Polish-Jewish immigrant shoemaker named Aaron Kuzminski, thank you. And now
I think he was a hairdresser, by the way, not a shoemaker, but anyway.
Of course. I'm terrified of mine. And now we discover some new details about the Queen of Thieves. We're joined in studio, as you saw, by I-24 News senior editor Ruthie Sinai, who deals with these very important issues daily.
Twice daily.
Twice daily. Tony, you're here too, because it's Jewish. Before we delve into this breaking news, we should have led the show with this today. Let's take a look at the following report about notorious Jewish criminals. Let's take a look.
126 years after he wreaked havoc across London, the identity of Jack the Ripper, perhaps the first iconic serial killer, has finally come to light. In 1888, a series of vicious murders rocked London. Although no clear evidence was found to link all the incidents, assumed to be between 5 to 11 murders, the continuing investigation revealed a connection. Most of the killing took place in the Whitechapel neighborhood of London's East End. Most of the victims were prostitutes, and the victims were all butchered in the same fashion, their throats cut and some of their organs removed. The killer was quickly branded Jack the Ripper. Another of his trademarks was his letters he sent to the authorities, informing them of his next step.
Dear boss, I keep hearing the police have caught me, but they won't fix me just yet. I have laughed when they look so clever and talk about being on the right track. The next job I do, I shall clip the ladies' ears off and send to the police officers, just for jolly, wouldn't you? Keep this letter back till I do a bit more work, then give it out straight. My knife's so nice and sharp, I want to get to work right away if I get a chance. Good luck.
Since then, the mystery of the identity of the infamous killer has never been solved. In 2007, British businessman Russell Edwards bought a shawl allegedly taken from the scene of one of Jack's crimes. Thanks to advanced forensic testing and infrared cameras, Jack's real name came to light. Allegedly, he was Aaron Kosminski, a hairdresser who arrived from Poland. He was later diagnosed with mental illness and spent his last years in a lunatic asylum. In the last few years, efforts to solve mysteries like that of Jack the Ripper are becoming a real industry. Questions such as who was the real Mona Lisa or the roots of Tutankhamen sometimes appear more burning than any other issue. But that as it may, finally the East End girls can sleep quietly now. Jack the Ripper will not strike again.
So I wish we could have kept the music.
Yes.
I know, and we should keep it
surprisingly lovely.
That might be dramatic. I want to open the morning edition show with that music.
It's like Eric Satie, something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, obviously he was Polish Jewish. That's Jack the Ripper, the Polish Jewish. But there's also Marm
Mandelbaum.
Marm Mandelbaum, who sounds like the woman you'd buy your knedel from on the Lower East Side in New York. Now that we know that one of the greatest murderers in the modern history was a Polish Jew, who was Marm?
Okay, Marm Mandelbaum, who operated just about at the same time that
Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper Kosminski was doing his thing in Whitechapel. On the Lower East Side of New York, as you mentioned.
I was right.
You were right, yes.
Okay.
There was a woman named Marm. Her name wasn't really Marm, it was something else, but everybody called her Marm because it was sort of like Mom, and she was a real mother hen to this group of street urchins, basically, who were students at her school of crime. School of crime. She opened an academy to teach people how to be criminals, and she
What
was.
does that include? Is there information coming up?
Thievery, pickpocketing. She's responsible. She herself and her students are responsible for one of the biggest bank heists at the time. Took something like today's equivalent of $75 million.
Right.
She was a feminist. She told women, you don't need to go and clean toilets and stuff and work in prostitution.
For a second. We're gonna pause on the picture right now of Marm.
Queen of Thieves.
Okay,
Rocking those shoulder pads.
Yeah, meet the Queen of Thieves, Marm Mandelbaum, New York City's first
mob boss.
She was.
Yeah, there's a headline about her in the New York Times in 1884, which basically says that she's the nucleus of the crime scene in New York in those days. This was, pre-mafia, pre-Italian. She was a German Jewess. You know, she'd come with the
We're going to stop
German
and pause for a second yet
immigrants.
again because this is all about me. So am I.
Are you?
Okay. All right. And so you have a career ahead of you. You know,
Completely. The German
After-
Jewish women,
Yeah.
beware.
Anyway,
Beware.
so
Secret
she
powers.
was
Yeah.
a great feminist. Now, because she basically told women, you don't need to clean toilets and stuff.
You can steal.
Credit card
Exactly.
fraud.
Exactly. Yeah. Now listen to the stories.
Yeah.
Finally, they caught up with her after many years. She had judges on her payroll and cops and the Pinkerton, famous Pinkerton agency, security guards, and everybody was on her payroll. But finally, there was a sting operation with some bales of silk, and they caught up with her. And the guy who came to arrest her, the detective, got out of his carriage, and she came up to her and said, "Okay, the jig's up. You know, put your hands out for the cuffs," and she punched him in the nose, but didn't help her. Anyway, she got arrested. She was let go on bail, and then awaiting her trial. And you know, everybody was abuzz, and her house was under surveillance 24 hours a day. And a few days before the trial, she came out in the morning, went to her lawyer's office, and the security guys were used to this. They followed in their carriage. She went into the office. Came out a few minutes later. They followed her, except it wasn't her. It was her maid, who dressed up in her clothes. And Marm Mandelbaum herself, you know, basically took a powder, fled the United States to Canada,
Of course.
where she lived out her remaining years. In the middle, there was a tragedy. Her daughter died. She came into New York. Apparently, law enforcement knew about it, didn't stop her. She buried her daughter and skedaddled back to Hamilton, Ontario in Canada.
How is this not a Hollywood movie yet?
P.S. to this whole story, there was a funeral in New York, very well attended, and in a final tribute to the Queen of Thieves, all the attendants reported that they had been pickpocketed.
So, I mean, I just want to say that, you know, we have had so much death and destruction, and ISIS and Ukraine, and everybody's fighting, and we need a Marm every morning.
Absolutely.
I mean,
and
you
a
rendered
woman,
me
I mean,
speechless.
she's a real, well, you know, I wouldn't call her a model of, you know, I wouldn't want young women today to...
Puts the shady dame of
yeah.
Seville to shame, doesn't she?
Now, they say that she's, I mean, this is coming out right now, and some of this spree is, I mean, what was funny to me this morning was that Jack the Ripper, the Polish Jew, first mob boss, American, you know...
Hairdresser.
Yeah, and then this, you know, this Jewish, German, you know...
Who, by the way, it's been known before, it's just not been proven. I mean, he was the front runner, I mean, he was the leading suspect.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh.
for many years. It's not new.
It's not new.
No. What's new is the forensic, I mean, the supposedly proof, the definitive proof that he was
the
the
one.
one.
DNA that basically...
Yeah, it was a DNA, this shawl that this piece
Yeah, we're
that
back
we
to the
saw.
Jewish Jack the Ripper, I'm just explaining.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. So this somebody bought at an auction a shawl that supposedly belonged to one of his victims, one of the women, and on the and they did very advanced forensic exams on the shawl and found both her DNA and blood and his.
Yeah.
Now he's apparently got heirs who still live in London, and who are keeping under kind of hidden because they're afraid of repercussions and
Seriously?
somebody.
Yeah, wouldn't that be there's something with all with the time that has passed? Well, I don't know. I mean, to walk around and say I'm Jack the Ripper's,
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
But no.
I mean,
So
do they discuss them on Passover dinners? That's what I'm wondering. Does it like make a toast for? But yeah, okay. I'm gonna let that one go.
No, but it really all kidding aside, these possibilities with these new forensic medicine tools are and biotechnology are incredible.
I'm thinking, the things that we should have this little, item every day of murders we want to have solved and look at their DNAs. I'm going to stop. Well, I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. Thank you, Ruthie, but do stay with us for, the dose du jour. Yes, Tony.
Okay.
That's her cue. The dose du jour.
That's the cue. Okay.
That's the cue.
Well,
anything and everything that's spiraling out there on the web.
Okay. Well, speaking of which, exactly.
Yes.
Twitter has yet again made a big splash, and this is for nothing political, nothing that Donald Trump tweeted. This is because
Trump, I forgot about Trump.
Yeah, well,
yes.
He'll be coming back to haunt us soon. But apparently, as of from yesterday, I believe, you can now actually buy things directly on Twitter. So this is a game changer. Yes, you can now buy things directly on Twitter. There's going to be a big buy buy
Yeah,
button
buy.
that's going to be appearing alongside items for sale. This is, I'm not sure of the exact mechanics of it, but this is going beyond the 140-character definition of what Twitter's all
And
about.
I'm about to say, this is actually, I mean, this has a lot of repercussions financially for the website, doesn't it? I mean, it basically, I'm trying to think this, but this puts them ahead of the fray. No, this is huge.
This is potentially huge. I mean, this, at one point, Facebook had talked about, sort of monetizing aspects of that beyond advertising.
Exactly, which everybody doesn't want to do because it ruins the party, so to speak.
But the interesting thing about this for now is that, Twitter has become such a political thing for people to, I mean, we talked about Islamic State and using Twitter as a platform and, trying to sort of de-enable that Twitter and social media, but now is it going to become just another place for people to buy stuff?
Yeah, really. I disapprove totally.
Yeah. Who knows if it'll even fly? Because it's very new.
And I disapprove. I just disapprove.
I mean, Amazon is probably looking at this.
Commercializing it in a way, and how will it be done? That's what I'm thinking. What, there'll be links to PayPal, there'll be links, or links to items that you want to buy.
It's going to be one-click purchases, however they do that. So it's going to be apparently easy, but actually, what are you going to be able to buy? I'm not clear at this point on, is it going to be books, travel, vacation? I'm not really sure, but we're going to be seeing more of it. And as you go onto Twitter, these buy buttons, will be.
That's awful. I just,
buy a tweet from Donald Trump.
Do you
for
remember,
a dime,
guys, when the internet was formed? Everybody's like, "This is great. This is the anarchist tool of the
free expression,
ultimate democracy."
Ultimate democracy. Yes. Yeah.
Well, the ultimate democracy, in a way, is street art. We've talked about this.
Take me on to the next one.
And that brings me to the Pope.
Yes.
Okay, and the most unlikely of sources, the Wall Street Journal, talks about the pop culture pontiff. Yes. Now, there's a place in Italy, because you know that Pope Francis, his family actually does come from Italy. There was Argentina, well, of course, but his last name, Bergoglio.
Bergoglio,
coming from a region of Italy.
Definitely Italian.
And his hometown there is sponsoring a contest. They're going to put up a 37-meter, basically, mural space, and it's going to feature the Pope, and they're inviting people to compete to put up sort of street art interpretations of the Pope, like Super Pope over there. That's in Rome.
I love that.
Yeah, it's sort of, how many popes can you think of that were the subject of such...
No, he's a hip and happening pope.
Yeah, I mean, historically, popes had very elegant pictures done, Botticelli, I don't know, Da Vinci had, but now it's become...
No, and the beautiful thing about Pope Francis, the nice thing about Pope Francis, let me not go overboard on this, is that, it's fine for him, this guy's on Twitter. It's this type of art that, his church does not, say, no, you cannot do that. It has to be Da Vinci.
They're not exactly wild about it, but they're kind of they're going with it.
They're allowing it, which is, they're allowing this now. They're not turning, then maybe 3,000 years from now, they'll allow women into clergy. Yes.
Maybe 30 months from now. You never know with this Pope how fast things can go.
Amen.
But speaking of religion, Gwyneth Paltrow. Yes, this slipped past my attention a couple days ago, but how could we overlook the fact that she is converting to Judaism?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. Yes.
Why? Hold on, stop. Do we want her?
You think,
that's a whole discussion.
Hell yes.
Yes.
I don't know.
I want to quote her. She says that she is descended from, and I quote, like 17 generations of rabbis. End quote.
Her father, on her father's side.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think
Does that count?
That doesn't really count.
No, not officially, but
still.
Yeah, it's the spirit that counts.
No, I mean, I'm going to be honest and say I'm sorry. It was one article that she that was written about her that she was quoted about. Why don't mothers do what she does and bring their children more to work? And do you remember that article? Whatever. I think I was on maternity leave.
Was that on Goop.com?
Yeah. There's Goop.com and there's the come on, because not all of us have the money you have to carry the help with you.
So that's the reason you don't want her to be Jewish?
Oh,
I'm very protective of the tribe.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you there. I mean, it's like, is it because her son, her kids are named Moses and Apple, which are Jewish names.
Apple?
Apple is a Jewish name.
I want to see if you're paying attention. But Moses,
definitely.
Moses. I mean, you knew
Moses.
It wouldn't be far off.
Moses is not far. Apple, I don't know.
Apple,
I don't know if it's Jewish.
But Judaism is the apple of her eye.
Judaism is the apple of her eye.
Isn't that nice?
Well, Yeah, and finally, last
Liza
one.
Minnelli is not converting to Judaism.
But?
She was unable to attend Joan Rivers' funeral because she busted her back picking up her dogs.
Sorry.
Now, we love Liza, even if she can't.
Even if she can't pick up her dog.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of dogs they were, but she exerted herself a little bit too much.
Terrible picture.
Well, I think it's nice sort of in a way.
Yeah,
Liza.
it's
People are still buzzing about the funeral, and Joan is still with us.
Completely. Guys, sadly, this was the time we had. This was definitely the Jewish block of the show, from Jewish death to celebs. Thank you. When we get back, iPhone 6 launching. Do we want it? I don't know. We'll check into that. First, though, the headlines. Good morning. Thank you for joining us and staying with us. I-24 News Morning Edition, where you should be, because right now, technology correspondent Shai Ringel, the man,
hi,
just trying to get enthusiasm out of you, is going to be with us. He is with us to tell us about the upcoming Apple conference. There is another one of these coming on, isn't there?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Hit me, because I'm going to get really, really obnoxious about Apple.
Yeah, a lot of people are at your position, and Apple, it's another phone, but this year they are trying to be a little different. They're going to introduce, some will say, the iPhone 6. It's all rumors.
We don't know. It's rumor and supposition.
We don't know anything.
Yeah.
But Apple, unlike earlier years, there's a lot of leaks, and we already know how the phone looks, and we already know that Apple, for the first time, will introduce two separate phones, one 4.7-inch screen, and the other one 5.5-inch screen. If
I'm going to start for a second. The only thing that comes to mind right now is how big is your screen? Thank you. You got it. Okay. Yeah.
And there's a lot of innovation in the new phone. We all hope.
Do we have a little piece about this? Am I right? Yeah. So should we look at the report and then
Okay.
And then we'll come a little report and then come back and kill it. Yes. Let's take a look.
Both new iPhones come in two different screen sizes. The first comes in an all-new 4.7-inch sapphire display. This phone is not plagued with the same issues that other phones of the same size are riddled with, because it was made by us.
The sapphire display is harder than anything it'll come into contact with in your pockets, like keys or something. It won't even scratch in the event that it blocks a potential stabbing. And for you in the wealthy 1 percentile, we've even added an option for a diamond display.
The second iPhone is a much larger display for all you phablet lovers. Actually, all we did was add a cell chip inside an existing iPad mini. No one will know the difference, and we saved a ton of money doing it.
The iPhones are now waterproof for any of your new wet experiences. Drop your iPhone in the toilet? No big deal. Just hose it off in the backyard. Your stupid kid spill spaghetti on it? No problem. Just toss it right in the dishwasher.
So yes, that was a parody.
Yeah.
I know. That wasn't a real report.
Because
are you devastated?
No, it's okay. Apple always has those stupid commercials where they speak about how the phone is revolutionary.
And it's amazing.
And every year it's the same, a little bit here, a little bit there. Apple really hope that this year they'll have the best, because Apple are a little lagging behind in the smartphone industry, and they already missed the wagon on all the wearable technology. And we really hope that tonight they'll introduce the iWatch. This is the big announcement.
But before we saw the the mock advertisement, which by the way was very funny, you said that there were some leaks about the screen size of Apple, right, of the new phone,
and the fact that it's going to be a wallet. This also is a really big...
wallet, a digital wallet.
Yeah, a digital wallet. Yeah. Of course, they want to get into the old PayPal area, and they probably, it's all by sources. They got deals with the big credit card companies in the United States, And also they'll get into Europe next year.
Is this an attempt at, when you said that Apple has already been lagging a little bit behind when it comes to the phones? I'm sorry for making the connection, but did we feel that after Steve Jobs, that he's no longer there and he's no longer leading the company? Is there a feeling, or am I just theorizing that actually, Apple isn't doing as well as it did during his days?
A lot of people think that way.
Yeah.
I don't. I think that
clearly.
Yeah, I think that the big revolutionary of smartphones is over. This is the area where we'll only get small features here, small features there, better camera, better speed, better phone, better screen. That's it. The smartphone has done its job. It revolutionized a new era.
You heard it here first from Shai Ringel. Yes.
And the thing is that we need the next thing, which everybody thinks is the iWatch, is wearable technology. And Apple is lagging behind because they want to introduce the best product. The LG introduced the product of a wearable watch, and Motorola just introduced a very good watch. But I've been on maternity leave and very hormonal, so I have no idea what this watch is. What are we expecting?
Well,
what does a digital watch do?
Not a lot. It's gonna be a pair to your phone. It will you can see SMS on it and Facebook, and it's mostly text. And it will have a health kit, which means it will know your heart rate. It will count your steps. It's a very the health issue in wearable technologies is the big seller these days.
I mean, is this like a watch? This would be on your wrist, or this would? I'm just trying to. Yeah. What is the difference between that? I'm sorry, I'm completely obsessed with it. What's the difference between that and me just clicking up my, my smartphone and looking at the time?
Yeah, but
and then having all the features
Apple doesn't want you to take your hand, reach to your pocket.
God forbid. Okay, I get it. That's too much exercise.
It's too much. They want.
It's a physical strain of doing that.
They want you to look at your technology here, and that it will have the ability to bleep and take. Your attention is very important.
Right.
And
it's actually one more step towards that chip they're going to implant in our brain, right? And then when we basically, flip our eyes, that's when we get all the information. Creepy. What else do you have for me? Yeah.
It's a really big announcement day for the tech world, because Intel is also introducing a new series of chips, also aimed for the wearable technology, which means it will get faster and thinner, and Intel is already talking about the next generation of wearables, unlike the iWatch that will be introduced today. Which is really interesting. Intel is, heading in that area, and we are all looking to hear what they have to say. It's also very rumored. They had an introduction of those chips last weekend, but today we're going to know what it's all about.
Okay, the rumor being,
wearable technology. This is the big issue.
Wearable technology.
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
But not only on watches. It's going to be on your shirt. It's going to be on your shoes. Yeah, I know.
As a woman, I'm horrified. I don't know. What about you? Seriously, wearable technology. Didn't it sort of flop completely with the what was it? The Google glasses. I mean, that was the beginning of wearable technology, wasn't it?
It's a next step. It's
because that didn't seem to take. I mean, it didn't really take, right?
It didn't take, and Google are really afraid of it because it's a very small program, the Google Glass. Not a lot of people has it, and you can't go and buy
it. Yeah.
Those who had it liked it, but there people who saw them didn't like them.
Exactly. Those who have it are regarded basically as dweebs.
Yeah, there's a word for it. It's called glass hole. It's people.
Yeah, glass hole. We get it. Yeah. It's people who have the Google glasses. Glass hole do the connection, of course. Okay. So it's the chips that come up for wearable technology. Leticia, would you wear technology?
No, I actually wouldn't, and I think I just thought about that
this whole technology thing is creating kind of like two sorts of human beings. Instead of like, it was supposed to put us all in kind of the same luggage. You know, everyone say, yeah, now Apple, like we all have Apple. We don't all have that. Actually, I think it's creating two kind of species, like the technology freaks, more and more and more and more, and the people that are more and more against it. And I'm part of, I mean, of course I have a cellular phone.
Kind of the Sean Ringles of the world, as opposed to...
Yeah, but we're going to take over the world. You know that. I'm sorry.
I don't think so. I think there's going to be a massive rebellion against it.
So there's
I don't
something
think
frightening
so.
when Sean Ringles sits here. So this is, I have to do an imitation of you. Yes, but we're going to take over the world. I kind of believe
you won't.
when you say that. Okay.
Because you have a smartphone, right?
Yeah.
You have a smartphone, right?
But then they'll find a way to put us back to life
Exactly.
through technology.
Yeah, with wearable technology. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you have a smartphone.
Yes, I do.
When smartphones were introduced 6 years ago, a lot of people said, I don't need that.
Nah,
but I
they
also
did.
had a camera, so for me the smartphone is not about like all those new apps and all those new things. It's like, for me, it's just nice because I can talk to someone the way I could do it a while ago, and I can take pictures. I don't do nothing else than that.
Okay, and on that note, Shai, stay with us, because it is the battle of technology versus, I don't know, us. Yes, and Leticia.
Versus culture.
Versus culture, thank you. Now, because this is the first time that you and I meet.
Yes.
And definitely not the last. Leticia, your last name, I'm sorry?
Loreni.
Loreni, lovely. I'm not going to try and pronounce it that way. And you are here with the culture roundup of everything and anything that is hot and sizzling in Canada, which sounds like a contradiction in terms.
Exactly.
Because it is Canada, after all.
In Canada, in Toronto.
In Toronto.
During the film festival, actually, I'm going to talk about technology through a movie that's creating an Oscar buzz. It's the new movie of Jason Reitman that is actually about this topic, how our attachment to the virtual world are destroying our relationship and turning us into a race of fame-obsessed, porn-addicted e-zombies.
Stop. Take that, Shai Ringel. Yeah.
Are you an e-zombie?
Yeah.
Okay. So the title of this new movie is called Men, Women, and Children. It's a star-packed cast: Adam Sandler, Jennifer Garner, Ansel Elgort that we discovered in the amazing movie The Fault in Our Star, which is the movie that made me cry the most in the entire world, more than The Green Line, more than anything before that. Anyways,
you cried in The Green Line?
Yes, of course.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And
I cry a lot, but this movie made me cry. The Fault in Our Star is something I call people and I'm like, you want to be depressed today? And they're like, yeah, of course. Go there.
Yeah, or move to the Middle East. And then one or the other. So this is actually what, about technology ruining our life? I mean, taking
our
over
relationship, like how destroyed our relationship towards human beings is destroyed through technology.
So
like,
it's a movie about Facebook.
A movie about every relation we have with the screen, whether it's a smartphone or a computer. It's the way parents are now like destroying their relationship with their kids because the kids are not paying attention to their parents, and the parents are just obsessed with knowing what's going on in their kids' life. It's the obsession of a man towards porn.
Right,
and it's this director is very used to analyzing this type of like the new type of society. He directed Juno before that, and a young adult also with
beautiful film
with Charlize Theron. So that's one of the movies that's creating the Oscar buzz as far as the best movie.
As the best one. What else in the Toronto Film
What
Festival?
else? Like I'm going to talk about now performances, because you have to understand, Toronto Film Festival doesn't have an official competition. No one is winning at the end. Yeah, someone is going to win the public prize.
Probably the
but
prize, right.
It's really just, it's kind of like a marketing meeting for movies everywhere in the world. It started like in the 70s, this festival. No one really paid attention to it. And then now it's like 400,000 people come to see the movies. 285 features are screened from everywhere in the world, especially this year, Europe, movies from Europe and Asia. And so the whole world is looking at this.
It's become almost as important as the Venice Film Festival, as the
well, no, I would say which one else? I mean, it's kind of parallel.
It's actually very unique because it's the biggest North American festival, and it's not in the very intellectual way. It's more into, it's really
what's going to be successful, what's going to sell.
Exactly, it's the trampoline. I don't know how you use tremplin in French. Like it's the Kickstarter for the awards season. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very good date because it's very next to the Oscar nominations, and a lot of Oscars movies started there, like Brokeback Mountain, who won at
started the Toronto Film Festival.
12 Years a Slave last year, actually.
So it's kind of the prelude. Anything that does well in the Toronto Film Festival most likely is getting the Oscar buzz.
It's getting the Oscar buzz. It doesn't mean it gets the Oscar, but you know.
Well, the last examples are pretty. It was predictable. Like what won at, what made the buzz at Toronto made the Oscar, and that's why I'm looking into it, and I looked at all those performances they're talking about. And Steve Carell is doing the buzz. He already did do the buzz at the Cannes Film Festival for this movie called Foxcatcher. Right. It's by director Bennett Miller, who directed Capote, who directed Moneyball, who directed 3 movies, and out of these,
all very high up on the Oscar
very good, and
nominations.
Four nominations for his actors, and here we find Steve Carell, who's usually a very funny actor, into a very dramatic part. He's playing John Dupont. And he's hosting Wrestler in this movie played by Channing Tatum, that I love, and Mark Ruffalo, that I also adore. So he's hosting this Wrestler in his estate, and he's going to murder Olympic gold medalist David Schultz. So it's a pretty dark persona, a psychopath.
No, definitely nice. That's already ringing my bell. Leticia, I was so enthralled by you and, by the enthusiasm that Shai Ringel here brought into the show that sadly that's all the time we have. But you folks are going to be back. You're a perfect match. Thank you guys for joining us. I-24 News Morning Edition. Check us out on the web, Facebook, Twitter, and by all means, do not forget to tune in tomorrow morning for another morning edition to start your day every day as you should, because we're watching. Thank you.